So can crypto actually be an effective tool for sanctions evasion? I would love to learn more about this from our next guest. Joining us now to discuss this is an expert in central bank digital currencies, among many other cryptocurrency-related topics, Tanvi Ratna, who is the founder of Policy 4.0. Welcome, Tanvi.
Hi, Emily. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Okay, so let's just get right into it. So, we're starting to hear more and more voices talk about okay, Russians are going to use crypto to get around sanctions, and we got to be really vigilant, and we got to sort of crack down on this. And you actually have, a pretty nuanced perspective and a technological perspective. So, can you explain to us, first of all, is this threat of crypto as a sanctions tool overstated, or is it actually something that we should really be worried about?
Sorry, just to get your question, you're asking if crypto as a sanctions evasion tool is really a threat.
If crypto as a sanctions evasion tool is actually a threat we should be worried about, or is crypto actually an effective tool for evading sanctions?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I think historically you've seen that Iran, North Korea, and some other regimes, they have been fairly successful at leveraging crypto, for moving money around. But I think at the same time, forensics capabilities have also evolved substantially in the world. And I think right now we are at a period of high degree of sophistication when it comes to forensic tools. So you even saw that after things like the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack and other such incidents that happened recently. So I think, there has already been very prompt action. Like you have seen U.S. Agencies already put exchanges on alert about crypto moving into Russian addresses and getting encashed out of Russian addresses. So I think there is a fair degree of coordination right now. It may not be very easy to leverage crypto to evade sanctions.
Yeah, Tanvi, as we were speaking about earlier in the show, a lot of U.S. politicians are speaking out about cryptocurrency exchanges and, their decisions in some cases not to ban Russian users. I'll bring up a tweet from Senator Elizabeth Warren. She said that cryptocurrencies risk undermining sanctions against Russia, allowing Putin and his cronies to evade economic pain. U.S. financial regulators need to take this threat seriously and increase their scrutiny of digital assets. So I'm wondering, Tanvi, can you walk us through how would a country like Russia evade sanctions exactly using crypto?
Yeah, I think there are many scenarios that could emerge out of this, right? So I think one of the commonly used instruments in crypto evading sanctions is the use of stable coins, right? So you have seen instances where there's trade going from Russia that's sort of denominated in tethers or in USDC, and it's settled cross-border using just plain stablecoin rails. So that very much bypasses the SWIFT system. It doesn't actually involve the banking system at all. And it just goes as a sort of exchange transaction cross-border, right? So this has been a very common, route that's been leveraged. And I think that's the first one that there is concern about. And that's why you saw the move against exchanges, which will be the sort of settlement points for transactions like this.
Do you see other countries actually interacting financially with Russia using Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies?
I wouldn't really know. I don't know how much I can speculate on the direction that many other countries will take, but I think it has become increasingly more difficult to use cryptocurrency just because of the high traceability that's there now in the system. So I'm not very sure, but, I cannot predict for certain what steps other countries will take.
So Tanvi, just, to weigh in on this debate that's happening right now, there are some people calling on the exchanges basically to block all Russian users, right? And some of the exchanges are fighting back saying that's not fair. We're not going to block all Russian users. We're going to just block, sanctioned accounts. And then on the other side, people are saying, well, that's not going to work, right? So I'm just curious, what is your take on this? Should exchanges be blocking all Russian users, or should they be doing a more targeted approach?
Yeah, I think this is probably, as I had also tweeted earlier, this is the biggest ethical dilemma there is going to be, now for cryptocurrencies. On one hand, you do have a whole people facing very extreme sanctions. I think unprecedented sanctions. There's never been sanctions of this scale and severity ever in the world, right? And you have a whole country that's facing that, and a lot of people who it's not really their decision whether they went to war or not. Should all of them be facing the brunt of these blocks and not have access to crypto, right? Because then that defeats the purpose of crypto. And on the other hand, you do have, an urge within crypto businesses to sort of stop bad activity from happening, right? To stop, funding of activity that will maybe cause more damage to lives and things like that. So I think it's a very difficult ethical dilemma. I think it's the fundamental dilemma of crypto, because as much as you can deplatform people and as much as you can shut things down, that's how weak your argument of then decentralization and censorship resistance becomes, right? So I think it's somewhere, it hits at the heart and soul of crypto.
Yeah, the problem is that when you say to U.S. politicians, this is against the spirit of crypto, they're like, who cares? Like, they don't care about the spirit of crypto. But my other question for you is just to touch on to your other area of expertise, which is central bank digital currencies, right? So Russia, as we know, has been piloting a digital ruble, very different from Bitcoin. This is like a digital version of the ruble. My understanding is that this is pretty far out, like this isn't happening anytime soon. But, we could argue that with Russia being excluded from the global financial system, this could accelerate their plans for something like the digital ruble. So I guess my question for you is, what do we know about the digital ruble? And is this something that, instead of Bitcoin, is this something that actually could be used for, direct payments to other countries bypassing the SWIFT system?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting angle to all this, right? I mean, there's talk about crypto being used for settlement, but not enough people are looking at the CBDC side. So I think what's very interesting is just about 10 days or so before invasion, Russia had sort of overturned its stance on crypto. I think you also covered it on the show. There was a period where they were going to curb it, shut it down. And then the president said that we might see some value in this. And it's around the same time that they announced this digital ruble. I don't think any of that is a coincidence. But yes, it could be that the digital ruble helps in cross-border trade. But as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I mean, the real challenge with CBDCs is not so much in making a CBDC and transacting with it. It's really in the settlement of assets. And that's where you have to put in much more infrastructure than just the digital currency infrastructure. You have to put in a lot of reserve settlement, like central banks have to hold reserves of different currencies to allow for that settlement. So I think that it's very highly likely that could happen with China quite easily, because they already have digital yuan infrastructure. They're already holding reserves of each other's currency. So it could happen, but I mean, that could happen even without a digital ruble. Like it's very possible through their traditional settlement rails that they just agree to settle in each other's currencies. So I'm not sure that the digital ruble will be such a game changer here.
All right. Well, we have another photo from a journalist, Jason Cochran, and he was tweeting about how Apple Pay and Google Pay no longer work on Moscow's metro system, leading to long queues as people fumble about for cash. So I'm wondering, do centralized payment systems increase the case for crypto or digital ruble amid these global sanctions against Russia?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because, as I've said before as well, I mean, the invasion has been war, but the real war is a full financial war. Like we've never seen anything of this scale before, where you're freezing their assets, you are, the markets are hurting, you're having companies pull out of doing business there, you're having that play out in all the markets, energy markets, aviation. This has not really happened at this scale before. I mean, we've seen some some past incidences when, their next Crimea, we've seen it happen with Iran. I think Iran's probably the closest proxy. So I think this kind of movement, we've seen in the short run already, there's an increase in whale wallets of Bitcoin, a very high and sharp increase. You're seeing Bitcoin's price go up. I do think that this will, in the short run, incentivize a lot of movement into crypto. But then in the long run, as governments start pushing back on it, it could backfire as well.